Right now at 5 o'clock, we begin with some breaking news we want to tell you about. Another health scare for Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell, the 81-year-old Republican leader, freezing during a press conference in northern Kentucky, unresponsive as reporters and then his own staff ask him questions. Thanks for joining us. I'm Shay McAllister.
And I'm Doug Proffitt. Today's episode happened at the Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce event. The senator was asked about re-election and did not answer, staring off into space for about 30 seconds. Here's what happened in Covington.
Okay.
Senator, you're up for election in 3 short years. What are your thoughts on that at this point?
I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing you.
That's okay. What are your thoughts on running for re-election in 2026?
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026?
yes.
All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute. Senator Benny.
Yep.
I'm gonna head outside, so come with us.
Well, this is the second incident like this one since July. Senator McConnell froze during a July press conference on Capitol Hill for 19 seconds back in July before being escorted away by staff, eventually returning, telling the reporters, quote, "I'm fine."
This week has been good bipartisan cooperation and a string of
Now, we contacted Mitch McConnell's office about what happened today. They told us that he felt momentarily lightheaded and he paused. His aide, who was with him in northern Kentucky, says while he feels fine, he is going to be consulting a physician prior to his next event in northern Kentucky. McConnell did not leave this event, by the way, and he did continue taking questions later, but not for very long. Now, late this afternoon, I talked by phone with one man who was there in the audience watching McConnell speak at the luncheon. You're going to hear from Trey Grayson, the former Kentucky Secretary of State, at 6. His view on how McConnell looked before the health scare. That's coming up tonight at 6. Now to the former hurricane. It's a tropical storm that came ashore early this morning. Idalia making landfall in the Big Bend region of northwest Florida as a Category 3 hurricane, slamming Florida with winds up to 120 miles an hour. Intense flooding in many towns from Tampa to the north. Take a look at some of these sites from around Florida's coast this morning. What were once roads now underwater due to the torrential rains and the huge storm surge.
Hurricane Idalia quickly weakened to a Category 2 hurricane as it moved inland and up the east coast. And just within the last few minutes, it has been downgraded again to a tropical storm. It is right now heading into Georgia. This is a live view from the beach in Kiowa Island, South Carolina, just south of Charleston, where the storm is hitting right now. It will eventually trail off into the ocean.
But it is causing problems in South Carolina, where tornado warnings were issued for parts of the Charleston area due to the storm late this afternoon. We have team coverage from meteorologist Alden German and our chief meteorologist Ben Pine. They're tracking this storm and where it's moving now.
Let's start with Ben on what Idalia is going to be looking like as it moves up the coast. Ben?
Yeah, it'll continue as a tropical storm, causing a lot of wind and a tornado threat, as Doug mentioned here, around Savannah, Georgia, Charleston, up to Myrtle Beach. That's where we have that tornado watch and several actual tornado warnings there, too. You can see the eye made landfall around 7:45 this morning around the Big Bend region, one of the most unpopulated areas in Florida. However, the impacts have been widespread. Record storm surge north of Tampa and a lot of coastal flooding there. The severe destructive winds causing nearly 500,000 power outages over northern Florida and southern Georgia, and now again out ahead of the circulation of what is now Tropical Storm Idalia is that tornado threat. So the latest update here from the National Hurricane Center, it's moving at a pretty good clip to the northeast at around 20 to 25 miles per hour. So it's not going to be long before this system heads back out over the open waters of the Atlantic Ocean. So this is the forecast up to midnight, heading over the central South Carolina coastline. The key thing here is it moves up to the northeast. Notice the flow is offshore, so that's going to limit the flood threat for these areas around Georgia and South Carolina along the coastline. And this is all a tropical storm warning there over the southeastern coast. By tomorrow morning around sunrise around Wilmington, North Carolina, and then quickly the rest of tomorrow into Friday, making its way out over the Atlantic Ocean. There have been some other big impacts as well, rainfall and wind. And with that, we'll head over to Alden German.
Ben, the rainfall is quite high in several locations. We're looking at two main areas here. The first one being through Georgia, the second one into central Florida. Into Georgia, where they had some of the highest rainfall totals over the last 12 hours, where areas near Valdosta were reporting over 9.5 inches in some rural localized locations and around 7.5 inches to the north of Jessup. And now in Florida, the flooding impacts were a little bit less just because this area is also fairly sparsely populated, and you're getting closer into the Everglades region, but still a couple of bands there of rain totals between about 6.5 inches and almost 9 inches of rainfall. Those wind gusts have backed off quite a bit, still around 45 miles per hour in a few locations, but as the storm continues the weekend, we'll notice those wind speeds also continuing to decline as the storm will continue to push offshore. Doug?
Thank you very much. Well, Idalia has now moved past Florida's Gulf Coast, and we are getting our first clear look at the extent of the damage left behind.
WHAS11's parent company, Tegna, has crews all across that hurricane impact zone. Some stationed to report as the storm moved through, others around the ground seeing the aftermath. Let's check in with the crew in Tampa.
I'm in downtown Tampa at the intersection of Rome and Bayshore Boulevard. And what we've seen here is water receding, but at one point, look at that debris. That's how high the water got this morning during high tide. Barricades have been placed still because we are still expecting the water to rise again during high tide, as our meteorologists have been saying. Now, this water has continued to go down, but we have seen exactly what officials are telling us not to do, and that's get into the water. We've seen anywhere from children playing in the water to bike riding, cars driving in this water. We've also seen kayaking, paddleboarding. So just to reiterate, this is exactly what we're not supposed to do. You don't know what's in the water. The water is salt water, so that could really cause some damage to whatever you're putting in there as far as any vehicles go. And something else is that water can deteriorate roads. You don't exactly know what's under there, especially if you can't see. This water is not the clearest. We have seen debris in this water as well, and you saw it over there. Now, officials also expecting this to come back up. We've heard our meteorologists say it as well, so please just be very cautious. We're not through it just yet.
As you might expect, we are seeing major impacts to power across the hurricane impact zone. You're taking a live look at the power outage map in Florida. Right now, more than 250,000 customers are without power in the state. All of the hardest hit counties right around that Big Bend area are really struggling. We also know that 20 states have sent crews to stage and prepare so power can be restored as quickly as possible. Some of them are coming from as far as Maine. Right now, crews from more than 10 electric cooperatives in Kentucky are driving to South Carolina and to Georgia, where there will be a lot of work to do to get everyone back up and connected. This afternoon, President Joe Biden spoke to the nation about the federal response to Hurricane Idalia.
The president says he's been in touch with every governor where Idalia is expected to hit.
I let each governor I spoke with know if there's anything the states need right now, I'm ready to mobilize that support of what they need.
President Biden saying they're all focused on trying to help their constituents, and Biden says he is mobilizing FEMA resources to get help to the most impacted areas.
We are constantly updating our website and the WHAS11 app as first responders get back into those evacuation zones to assess the damage. You can get that information right at your fingertips. It is available for free right now on your device's app store. Now to a major update back here at home. Metro Police say they have made the final arrests in the investigation of an interstate road rage shooting from July.
It led to the serious injury of a 6-year-old girl who was riding in a car, a bullet hitting her spine, paralyzing her. Today, Edward Sark of Clarksville, Indiana, you see him right here as he was arraigned in court, arrested on assault and wanton endangerment charges. Police say while he was on a motorcycle, he fired the shot. The hit little Onyx Sands. Also today, this woman, another suspect, Shelby Biskiner from Louisville, was in court. She's accused of firing a gun multiple times toward the car with Onyx and her family inside.
A third suspect, Jonathan Rivera, was already booked on state charges in connection to the shooting. He is now also facing federal charges after a grand jury indicted him on possession of a handgun by a convicted felon.
Isaiah Kim Martinez and senior photojournalist Alyssa Newton got an update from police today on what made the difference in this case.
Well, it's been just past 7 weeks since University Boulevard was lined with police tape. Now Metro Police says they're one step closer toward getting justice for the family affected. They're also touting a new unit for helping to speed up this investigation. Newly released LMPD video showing the arrest of Edward Sark, the man they say is responsible for putting this innocent little girl, Onyx Sands, in a wheelchair. Now, ATF Louisville and LMPD say they can take the next step, not just for the Sands family, but others suffering from gun violence. Is there something you guys learned from this case specifically that was different or that you can use in similar cases going forward?
It validated the plan of the non-fatal shooting unit moving forward. It shows how effective that it is.
Lieutenant Lacefield is the commander of LMPD's newly formed unit, dedicating 16 detectives to shootings that aren't deadly. Each detective, Lacefield says, did some work on Onyx's case.
But to be able to take the time and put together a solid case that is going to withstand the scrutiny of the court.
Deputy Chief Steve Healy telling me the unit allows for more thorough, efficient investigations to get what so many families plead for: answers and justice. In Louisville, Isaiah Kim Martinez, WHAS11 on your side.
And during the road rage incident from July, police believe about 15 shots were fired over an 8-mile stretch of I-65. The shots fired by 3 different people. Suspect Edward Sark is being held at Metro Corrections on a bond of $100,000 cash. The other suspect, arrested yesterday, Shelby Biskiner, was released on home incarceration.
And today we are learning more about that massive drug bust in Louisville. The FBI taking dozens of people into custody and bringing in hundreds of federal officers for extra manpower to execute what they called Operation Frozen River. It was a joint operation between the FBI, LMPD, Homeland Security, and the IRS, crossing both sides of the Ohio River. A federal grand jury returned indictments for 34 people in connection to meth, fentanyl, and firearm offenses. According to the FBI, more than 350 law enforcement officers from the federal, state, and local levels and 11 SWAT teams all participated in yesterday's raids.
We're not just finding folks that have a little bit of drugs on them. These were organized groups. These were groups that we knew who they were, and they were specifically targeted through intelligence operations, and then ultimately that led to these indictments.
If convicted, the defendants each face minimum sentences ranging from 10 to 35 years. They each face a maximum sentence of life in prison.